From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Farmer helping farmer.
You come back down when you start seeing it, gives you the quivers.
The ag community helps their own after devastating wildfires and tornadoes. How much will farmers in Ukraine be able to plant this year? New estimates are in. How many believe American farmers could help fill the void. And cases of a deadly bird flu continue to rise across the country.
Poultry producers of all kinds, big and small, will have to be on high alert.
The battle to try and contain it. Right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The nation's biggest egg producer is on high alert as highly pathogenic avian influenza makes its first significant return to the state of Iowa since 2015. The state now reporting 5 cases since the start of the month, pulling more than 6 million commercial laying hens, turkeys, and backyard flocks out of production. The Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship announcing it's canceling all live bird exhibitions at fairs and other gatherings. Now it's effective immediately and will last a minimum of 30 days and until 30 days is passed without a confirmation of a new infection. At 55 million laying hens, Iowa is the nation's largest egg producing state at some 16 billion eggs a year. It ranks 7th in turkey production, growing up to 12 million birds.
Now we have 5 confirmed cases, and we frankly expect that number to likely grow as we go through the spring migration. You know, we've been watching what's been happening in the eastern United States as it's come across the country and really moving through the flyway. And it appears that wild birds are really the source of this virus, and that those wild bird introductions are what we're trying to combat here. And so again, that tells me that we've got a long spring yet to go here, and we'll need to be on high alert. Poultry producers of all kinds, big and small, will have to be on high alert, trying to really improve that biosecurity every single day.
Now, back in 2015, high-path avian influenza forced the destruction of nearly 33 million birds in Iowa alone, and more than 50 million were destroyed nationwide in what's considered one of the worst foreign animal disease outbreaks on record. Now, so far, no human cases of avian flu have been detected in the U.S., and officials stress that poultry products are still safe to eat. NAID mentioning the likelihood this is being spread by wild birds. Taking a look at this map from USDA's APHIS, the states highlighted have seen HPAI detections in wild birds. This is as of March 22nd. North Carolina with 143 confirmed samples, 54 in New Hampshire, 43 in Florida, and 32 in Missouri and Connecticut. In the Ukraine, there are reports that planted acres in the country could fall by half this spring. Reuters reporting the country's ag minister said that farmers may only be able to plant about 7 million hectares this year versus 15 million last year before the Russian invasion. He says farmers planted 6.5 million hectares of winter wheat, but the harvested area may only be around 4 million. The country's ag minister, Roman Lyshenko, also submitting his resignation this week, but no reason why was given. As a way to help make up for those acres lost in Ukraine, farm groups here at home are urging USDA to allow farmers to put land back in production that have been set aside for conservation. Now, 7 ag groups sending a letter to Secretary Tom Vilsack asking the agency to provide flexibility to farmers to plant crops on more than 4 million acres of farmland currently enrolled in the Conservation Reserve Program without penalty. Now, among those sending the letter, the American Farm Bureau Federation and the National Grain and Feed Association. But some farmers are skeptical because CRP acres are often set aside because they're difficult to farm. Secretary Vilsack, in a March 10th town hall, did not rule out the plan, saying it was a little premature to make that call. The Biden administration is rolling back some tariffs in a move supported by several American businesses. The U.S. Trade Representative announcing a new trade agreement with the United Kingdom that would lift tariffs on British steel and aluminum. In exchange, the U.K. will lift retaliatory tariffs on American exports, including whiskey, motorcycle, and ag products. And the administration is also easing some tariffs on Chinese-made goods. It comes in response from some American businesses saying that they needed relief from supply chain disruptions and rising inflation. However, the majority of the tariffs on China will remain in place as long as Beijing falls short on its promise to import more American products. And the U.S. and Japan announced an agreement that lowers the chance of Japan imposing higher tariffs on U.S. beef. The agreement included a new mechanism that requires 3 separate conditions to be reached instead of only one for Japan to invoke a safeguard trigger and impose higher duties on U.S. beef for 30 days. For the safeguard tariffs to kick in, total beef imports from not only the U.S. but also the 11 members of the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership must exceed the threshold set in the CPTPP agreement. Some timely spring rains could be what's needed to get more farmers thinking about planting. Meteorologist Matt Yurisovic has the very latest. Matt?
Yeah, Clinton, that's right. And if we look back in the western United States at our root zone, you can see we've got a lot of very, very dry soil. That's where that drought has been ongoing now for a couple of months. And unfortunately, it looks like that is going to continue. Meanwhile, Middle Tennessee and places in the southeast dealing with a lot of moisture and have been over the last month or two. And we're expecting to see a little bit more of that in the east as we head over the next couple of days, at least through the weekend. Some of that, though, could be in the frozen form as some colder air works its way into the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes. More moisture looking possible, though, next week, especially out in the west, as we take a look at that jet stream, a big dip in the jet stream through the middle part of the week and through the latter half of the week, which is Thursday, Friday into Saturday. So that keeps a lot of precipitation and even some higher elevation snow still possible in the west as we head through next week. Earlier this week, we celebrated National Puppy Day and asked you all to send in photos, and you didn't disappoint. Brandon Fenn sharing this one of his puppy named Ellie. He says she's just 5 weeks old and they got her this past week. You can bet Ellie will be loving life on the farm. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
What does falling milk production mean for prices right now? We dive into dairy next. And later, paying it forward, how farmers in Texas and Kentucky are helping each other after wildfires and tornadoes left a trail of destruction.
AgDay is brought to you by Germinator Closing Wheels. Germinator, it's not just any closing wheel. Reach your yield potential. Pre-order by March 31st with coupon code AgDay for $2 shipping per wheel.
Mike North with EverAg, our guest today. Mike, as we talk about what's going on in the dairy market, we know production is down this year, but how's that setting up for the conversation around prices in 2022?
So that issue is not just a domestic one, but a global one. And if you go back to the USDA reports, we've now had 4 successive months of production cuts. We've been watching the herd in terms of total cow numbers drop since last summer. We're down 94,000 cows year over year as of February. This production decline is borne out mostly of higher feed costs and now escalating labor and supply costs to the farm. We don't look for that to slow down immediately. We're looking for another month or 2 of cuts. However, as we look at the rest of the world, that's a different story. When we talk about the other big milk sheds in the world, New Zealand, Australia, which we refer to commonly as the Oceania region, is down sizably year over year as a byproduct of weather. Australia is still dealing with floods and other issues. New Zealand not having appropriate moisture for their pastures. We're looking at another down year for them as we go into the 2022 calendar. As we talk about Europe, it's the same story, but they're passing more stringent regulations environmentally that are moving cows out of the equation. And so the setup going forward on production for at least for the next 6 months, in our view, maybe longer, is that it's going to be lower, and that will be price supportive for dairymen as we work our way through the 22 calendar year.
Real quick, I got 20 seconds. What does it mean for profitability? Are we hanging tough on that?
We actually need this lower production story to help balance us on the feed cost and other overhead, and that actually is helping us project really strong profitability throughout 2022.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. Sure appreciate it, Mike North. We'll be back with more Ag Day coming up in just a minute.
To contact Mike, visit www.ever.ag or give him a call at 608-518-3106. The 2022 Bracket Busters Challenge, presented by Case IH, is underway. Who's still in the game? To find out, head to AgWeb now through April 4th to check the leaderboard. Ag Day weather is brought to you by Zoetis. Even though calves don't wait for perfect weather to arrive, you can count on Zoetis to be there. Share a picture of your newest calf and you could win a calving season survival kit. Enter now at calvingseason.com.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us here, taking a look at the drought monitor. Matt, really this a new drought monitor out this week, but it hasn't really changed a lot. A little give and take.
Yeah, we've seen some slight improvements in places in the east, but also back in the west, still dealing with some exceptional drought conditions. And over the past few months, it's been very, very dry out there in the west. And again, haven't seen a lot of precipitation over the past week, but still going to be looking at some of that potential as we head through the next week. And we'll see more of that not only here where we're seeing those exceptional drought conditions, but also all the way back towards the Pacific Ocean and up into the northern Rockies as well. Eventually those systems move east and we could see some improvements here along the east coast after some of that rain recently just moved off of the east coast. So here's a look at the next 10 days. Begins over in the east, and then we've got a system that moves into the west and eventually kind of slides up through the upper Midwest before another system takes over, potentially bringing a lot of rain into places along the deep south from Texas all the way through the Gulf Coast, even into Florida. So the next 10 days looking pretty active, especially in the second half of that time period. Now, the first half, not much going on, but this weekend, some colder air starts to invade the upper Midwest into the Great Lakes. We could see some of those snow showers. Not saying it's going to accumulate all that much in some places, but we'll likely see some flakes fly downwind of the Great Lakes and in interior portions of the Northeast as well. So here's a look at the map right now. High pressure out there in the west, and then we've got the system moving off the east coast finally. But again, here is this system right here bringing in a little bit of moisture and the colder temperatures, which are going to kind of create that chance for some of those lake effect snow showers late in the season now, keeping it pretty cloudy as well. Meanwhile, most of the country pretty dry, pretty quiet as we head through Saturday, even into Sunday, but you can still see some of those lake effect snow showers out there in the east heading through Saturday evening. Temperature is going to reflect that as well. Very mild across the south. We've got colder air starting to invade heading into tomorrow morning, and if we look at the highs tomorrow afternoon, you can really see we've still got 70s and 80s, even close to 90 down in San Antonio, through the middle of the country with that big ridge, and then colder air invades through the northern half of the country. And that's because of that pattern right here, which holds tough at least through the weekend, but early next week signifies a little bit of a change. We'll bring in a more active pattern. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Clayton Lake, Maine, snow likely, 2 to 4 inches possible, a high of 33 degrees. Clouds clearing and very windy in Wheaton, Minnesota, a high of 42 degrees. And lots of sunshine and staying warm, a high of 82 in Corning, California.
Still ahead, we look at the bright spots in the dairy industry right now. See how producers in Kentucky are helping farmers impacted by devastating tornadoes in the country. Cheese continues to be a bright spot for the dairy industry. USDA releasing new cold storage numbers this week. It shows total cheese stocks grew in February by 24 million pounds. That puts cheese stocks at 1.4 billion, a gain of 2.3% year over year.
It shows that there's a good solid demand for the fresh cheese, and that's what the natural cheese is. And I mean the fresh cheese because that's what's traded on the CME. So we've got some good demand through the CME. That's why prices have been rising. But there is a good solid demand for the American cheese category, seeing a decrease from January, and which is significant contra-seasonally. It's still higher, 2% higher than a year ago. But seeing a decline like that, at least for the second month in a row at the beginning of the year, is quite significant.
Butter stocks grew by 44 million last month. Total inventory now sitting at 263 million pounds. But right now, we are 26% below a year ago's levels. Crews are still working to contain several wildfires in Texas. The largest, the Eastland Complex fire, has consumed more than 54,000 acres in west central Texas. At last report, it was 75% contained, and there are significant losses to producers being reported in that area. Now, we've heard about one rancher losing his house, barns, and more than 700 bales of hay. One Texas AgriLife Extension agent says that cattle impacted by the fires have little in the way of feed, and they're also dealing with scorched pasture land.
Our ranchers over the weekend have gotten together, and we're in the process of getting funds together to buy cattle cubes to provide for protein resources for these cattle.
Now, he says ranchers in his county are just returning the favor. He says that Eastland County producers provided assistance to Hemphill County ranchers back in 2017 when wildfires in the area caused similar damage. But the farmer helping farmer attitude isn't reserved just for Texas. See how producers in Kentucky are helping farmers impacted by devastating tornadoes in the country. We continue to keep you updated on the cleanup after a massive tornado tore through western Kentucky back in December. Now, it's a scene some farmers in the state know all too well because they witnessed it firsthand more than 10 years ago. And as Jeff Franklin from the University of Kentucky reports, the farmers felt compelled to pay it forward.
This is some of the aftermath following tornadoes that plowed across Kentucky 10 years ago in March 2012. There were people killed, towns destroyed, and farmers lost barns, livestock, and fencing. But to the rescue came volunteers with donated feed, hay, and fencing supplies to help them recover. On the 10-year anniversary, March 2nd, 2022, some of those farmers hit hard by tornadoes were in western Kentucky, at Bremen in Muhlenberg County, paying it forward. Tim Bertram and his cousins, brothers Paul and Chris Rice, all from northern Kentucky, were rebuilding fences for farmers who suffered the same fate as they did in December. Bertram said it was hard for him to see the destruction.
We was pretty lucky. We was just lucky. More ways than one. But you come back down, when you start seeing it, it's gives you the quivers.
Bertram, Paul and Chris Rice and others drove nearly 250 miles from northern Kentucky to lend a hand.
I hate to see everything gone like it was. We lost 4 buildings.
David Jarvis, a Red Angus seed stock beef producer for more than 30 years, benefited from their hard work. Winds of 195 to 200 miles per hour ripped Jarvis' fences right out of the ground. But he did not lose any of his cows.
That was a powerful storm. It picked up grown cows. I was lucky. I don't know where my cows was at that night. They was in this field year, and they must have got someplace that was safe.
Neighbors helping neighbors is how Jarvis saw the volunteers coming to his rescue, which he appreciated. The effort was organized by retired Campbell County Agriculture Extension Agent Don Sorrell and Muhlenberg County Agriculture Extension Agent Darrell Simpson.
Well, we'd experienced, a tornado and had so much help up there in Campbell County and Pendleton. So initially, that sort of set the stage for us wanting to repay all the volunteers and support that we received.
We've been so blessed in terms of having folks like Don and his men come down and help us. It's absolutely amazing. It's humbling as well, and so I cannot express the gratitude.
Simpson said other volunteers have come to Muhlenberg County to help, and many have offered to return later this year.
Really great to hear my farmers say the next time it's our turn.
From the University of Kentucky College of Agriculture, Food and Environment, I'm Jeff Franklin.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Now, the extension agent in Muhlenberg County says that many farmers have offered to return to help later this year. And that's all of our time this morning. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day. I'm Farm Country.